Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm super excited because we're going to be talking about something that a lot of you asked me about on my last video about water. How exactly I go from place to place and where I find water, but also what I do with it after I get it in my van here. And as you know, I have some containers that I keep my water in, but I don't just use the containers, and I want to explain why. See, the more important conversation is not how I store the water, but rather the water itself. As I travel across the country from place to place, there are a few things that I've learned about water that you don't necessarily think about when you start out van life. And today I'm going to blow the lid off all of it and share it with you. Water is not the same from place to place to place. Now, you've probably realized that you go to a place that it might have a different taste in your mouth for the water. Well, guess what? Water is not supposed to taste any kind of way. It's supposed to just be water. And so if you're tasting those things, that means that you're tasting additives or minerals, or even in some cases, toxins. So, since there is no one source of water that's universal from place to place, as you can imagine, when you're filling up at a water station, you could end up with some really great water, or you could end up with some somewhat not so great water. And because of that, a lot of things can happen. For example, did you know that water can make you sick? Well, there's a reason that we don't talk about that very often, because we just trust the process that the water that's coming to us out of various faucets is clean and good and safe. Otherwise, they would tell us that. However, just because it's clean and good and safe in one area doesn't mean that your body is going to react to it the same way that it might to other clean, good, and safe water in another place. In fact, one of the leading causes of stomach irritation is water. Too much of it's bad, too little of it's bad, and the wrong kind is definitely bad. Even whenever you're going from jugged water to jugged water, you may not have consistency. Now, we're pretty fortunate here in the United States to, for the most part, have clean water. But did you know that whenever they did the Oregon Trail, one of the leading causes of death was contamination of water, which would cause dysentery, diarrhea, even cholera that could be passed through the waters? For the most part now, we don't have as much of that, but in some areas you still do have levels of contamination that would not make you comfortable to just go up and pour some water out and just drink it right up. So what do you do to regulate this so that you can have a more safe understanding of the water you're drinking? Well, something I have always done since the very beginning of my channel is filter my water. And you might be thinking, oh, if I get water at one of those fill-up stations, it's already filtered. But today I'm going to do a little bit of a test to show you various versions of water and why that theory does not always hold true. So I'm going to do some water testing today to show you filtered water from a tap versus the tap water itself. I'm going to show you a few different sources of water that are somewhat local to me, and I'm going to show you how there's an inconsistency from tap to tap to tap to tap, and why you should be filtering your water an additional time just to make sure it's good. But I'm also going to give you my favorite source of filtering in this video so that you can be prepared. We'll start this with my tiny home. I'm going to show you some water straight out of the tap here, and it is well water. And then I'm going to show you some water that I filtered from the tap. But before we do that, if you've been with my channel very long, you probably saw when I picked this up. This is a Lifestraw that has just a twist cap that pops up, and then there is the filter right there. I have filtered gallons upon gallons upon gallons of water over the past year of having this bottle, and I can definitely tell you that I can tell the difference. Now, previously I used a different kind of filtration system and it worked really well, but it wasn't the most convenient for just pouring in and then being able to consume. This is much better. But also within this water bottle system, I can also filter the water through and use it for like my stove and stuff like that. So, awesome. Took me a while to get one, couldn't fully commit, and then once I did, I kicked myself and wondered why I hadn't purchased one already. But Today I'm going to show you a different version of Lifestraw because Lifestraw is one of the best companies out there for doing this, and it is also one of the most widely accessible companies. You can literally find these at Walmart, you can find them at REI, you can find them at every major sporting goods store. You can even find them in some grocery stores now because water bottles are so popular and the quality of drinking water has come to the forefront a lot more. So I'll show you that in just a minute, but first let's do our water test so you can understand why we're filtering our water again. Okay, so before me I have 4 different kinds of water. This one is city water, then we have straight from my tap well water, I have filtered well water, and then I have a different well. And I'm going to be using these little test strips today. These are just test strips that you can find in the pet department. They're easy to use, and my mom actually uses these for a lot of experiments at school. So they come in a little container like this, and well, we're gonna find out what happens. So basically, we're supposed to pull these out. Okay, now it's time to begin. According to this, the way that this is going to work is we are just going to remove the test strip, hold it at the end with no pads, so just right here, and then we're going to put it into and then remove immediately from the water, and then we're going to compare it to the side over here. So let's see how this goes. This is my first time doing a water test like this, but in we go and then out we go. Now this is where the real fun happens. So underneath the original label, we have this chart which tells us more about the water. So now we're going to compare the strip to this to see what exactly that means. And I have a feeling it's not great. Okay, so I'm on the freshwater side. This can test fresh or salt water. And we're looking and we're lining up the oranges. And the orange, okay, it's not quite that dark. It looks like it's more over here, like this one. And that means that it is neutral. So that's not terrible. And while we're looking at the green, it looks like the green is more this one. So it is a very low on the alkalinity scale, so super low alkaline. And then up here we're looking at more of like this brown, and so this means that it has very hard qualities to it. And then we're going into the nitrates, and the nitrates are pretty neutral on this one, it looks like. And then when we get up here, this isn't really any of these. It looks more like these. So there's 2 different kinds of nitrates, and one of them is a stressed nitrate and one of them is a caution. So okay, that is our city water. So nothing too great about that. Now remember how earlier I was talking about that the water that we get from those Walmarts and things like that is filtered, but it comes straight off of like city water. So if you were to get water in this particular city, it's not the greatest water, and what hard water will end up doing is actually calcifying your tanks and doing things like that. So there's that. Now we're gonna move on to the well water. This is the water I deal with every single day, and I've talked about it a little bit on my tiny home channel as to why I filter the water, but also we're about to learn a little bit about water softeners because this uses a water softener. Mostly because I also have super hard water, but this is a way that they go through and make it a little less hard in theory. So in we go, all the way past the pads, drawing it out, and then we don't really fling it, we let it sit, and it takes about 30 seconds. Okay, we have our sample, and we'll start off up here. And it looks as though we're actually closer to this area on this one. That's pretty close. And so it says stress on nitrate still. Okay. And then this one, it looks like it's safe. Okay, so stress and safe on those 2. And then we get into this one, which is not quite that one. It's kind of not any of these. It's a little bit off from these. I will say it probably favors in the hard area though, because it's more of an orangey tone than a brown tone. So that's definitely probably still a bit hard, but maybe this is what it does when it has the salt in it. Now this is positive though. When we look at this, we're getting over into these blues, and these blues are actually ideal and high. And so that is the alkalinity. So the alkalinity of the water is very good here. And then whenever we get down here, this one's a little bit different too. It's not quite this one, but it's definitely not that one. So I would say on here though, it is very high in the alkalinity overall. So with the softener, my well water's not bad. Now I'm just gonna dip into this other one, which is the filtered well water, so we can see if there's a difference. Again, it has to wait about 30 seconds, but it's already starting to change. Okay, starting off on this one, it still looks like it's changing just a little bit before my eyes. So this one, it looks like it is, let's see, it's not quite 0, but it's not really 20 on the nitrate scale there. And on this other one, it is definitely 0. So it is definitely a bit lower than the other one. For sure, the first one that we did. Then we get over here to the brown, and the brown has fully developed, and it looks pretty similar in color to this last one, or kind of in between, so it's still very hard. When we get into this color right here, it is ideal. And then on this last one, it's bright, bright pink, so it says it's very high in alkaline. So it just took the water that was coming from the well and improved upon it, and it just kind of made it a little tiny bit better, which is awesome. Now, last but not least, we're gonna dip into this one, which is a different well. And we're gonna dip it and then pull it out, and then wait 30 seconds to see what happens. Okay, we're getting closer, and I think we can start looking at this now. We're looking at like 20 to somewhere between, I want to say it's close to the 20 there. It's still changing a bit, so I'm sure that it will go into that safe region still. And then the next one, definitely safe. And then here we get into the brown, but it is much closer to this last one on this one than the others were, so it's very hard water. And then we get into our blue again, which our blue, it kind of varies. This is kind of a lighter shade of blue, so I want to say that it's in the ideal version. And then also the pink is somewhere between these two pinks right here. So overall, this well also has very good quality water as a whole. Now you can see from these what they look like now, and you'll notice the slight variations and differences in each one of them. These three over here are all on my property personal, and so they have the proper things that we know will keep the well clean. And also well water is usually a bit more clean because it doesn't have all the chemicals processing through it. So these are more controlled. This one, however, coming straight from a city, you can see is a very different story. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking, wow, we just did science, I'm all about brain wrinkles, but more so, I think sometimes you can visually see something a bit better whenever you do things like this. Now, the three things that are on my property with the controlled well at both my house and then my parents' house, and then also the water filtered through the filter, just kind of goes to show that in certain places the water is going to be more consistent, but even within that consistency there are slight variations, and you can see that through the colors on the strips. But I will let you know this is city water, regular city water that people are using every day. In fact, this is water that's coming out of the faucets, the fountains, the shower heads, and everything in between. And as you can see, it is not ideal in comparison to this one right here. There's a huge difference. And because of that, so often when we're traveling, we are ending up with some of that we are consuming. And that's why, again, you can get upset stomachs, diarrhea, issues with your digestion, and things like that. So, again, circling full circle, how do we fix that? This guy right here, this is another water bottle that you can use, that you can fill up your tanks and then pour over into it, and it works very similarly to my plastic bottle. But I want to show you some of the details as to why I recommend something like this whenever you're traveling. Now that you have the science behind it, let's talk about what this actually does to help with that science. And you can find all of that right here on the actual container for the Lifestraw. This is their Go series, and it is a stainless steel water bottle that has a filter already on it. it has a 2-stage filtration system that includes a membrane microfilter that removes 99.999% of bacteria. But it also removes 99.9% of parasites and microplastics, which is something that we don't frequently talk about, the microplastics that are actually in our drinking water. And let me tell you a little bit more about why you should be concerned with that and why something like this can help with that. So microplastics contain a lot of bad stuff, and typically it's over time that you continue to consume these that it becomes a problem. They release chemicals and toxins into your system, and typically you don't even know that you're consuming them. In fact, a lot of times whenever we're ingesting these kinds of things, we are completely blissfully unaware because they're not scratchy on our throats and they're so small that they just pass straight into our digestive system, and that's where they wreak havoc because they either sit in our system and just kind of do bad things as they're trying to exit our bodies, or they start to break down, and in doing so they release those nasty chemicals into our bodies. Now, it is completely understandable that we don't talk about this as much as we should because most people don't even know that this is a thing. But this is a really big problem that is starting to occur more and more, especially because of pollution and because of things that are creeping into our water systems. So in addition to us working on cleaning up the planet, we should also clean up our water, but these things are so small that for large bodies of water, like water towers and things like that, a lot of times they kind of slip through the cracks. So microplastics, real bad dudes. But here's the scary part. Even with the things that we're currently doing to try to eliminate microplastics, we're still ingesting about 78,000 to 211,000 tiny microplastics annually on average per person per year. That's insane to know that there's that many. And every little thing that we can do to help this is important. And that's why I suggest filtering the water, whether it is at home in your refrigerator or on the road through a water bottle like this Lifestraw. This is just something that can help you along the way, because now that we're learning more about microplastics, we're learning that they actually do some really harmful things which can lead to long-term problems and illness. So let's learn a little bit more about the Lifestraw now. Now, this guy right here is a double-walled insulated stainless steel container, which means that if you put cold water in it, it's going to stay cold longer. And I really like that because especially on hot days, the last thing you want to do is grab for your water bottle and lukewarm water when you're expecting it to be cold. So with that said, those are kind of the specs of this. It also can contain up to 24 ounces of water, which is a nice amount of water to consume. Of course, I've talked about hydration on the channel before, so this is a good way to hydrate and also filter, and I definitely recommend this. Okay, this is what it looks like whenever it's out of the actual container, just a regular water bottle with lots of real estate for stickers and collectibles, which I absolutely love. And then it has a nice grippy handle on it so you can easily grab it, but also it's big enough that you can throw a carabiner on here very simply. So we're gonna open it up, and here's the filter. As you can see, this little filter right here can filter enough water to equate to 8,000 plastic water bottles that you no longer will be using, because now you can have something that filters the water and gives you clean water as opposed to creating more trash, which is another cool thing about these kind of water bottles. Now inside you can see it's just a nice long reservoir there, and on the bottom it has some branding and things like that, but the water bottle itself is pretty simple. And I really appreciate the fact that Lifestraw has these kinds of options available to us, but then you can take this little cap and twist it again, and here is your consumption spout. So, yep, that's all right there. It's just a little mouthpiece. It has a little air hole so that it doesn't end up popping the water up, because if you've ever been popped in the face by some water coming out of your water bottle, you understand. But it's a nice lip feel. It's kind of a silicone material, so it's very comfortable on the mouth. It doesn't end up hitting the teeth with like a piece of plastic or something. And then because this all comes apart, you can actually wash all the different pieces and keep it nice and clean, which I really appreciate. But then there's also this. for every purchase that you make of a Lifestraw, they actually help out a child. And I think that that is another wonderful piece of this bigger picture story. You know, ultimately, we want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves and we're getting consistency in our drinking water. We need to stay hydrated, but we need to stay healthy. But a company like this also giving back is something that I can definitely get behind. And I think that by doing this, they're allowing more people to have access to clean drinking water, which is something that, even though we can see here ours is not super consistent, it is still considered for the most part safe, unlike some people who don't have that luxury. So I hope this is helpful to you, and I hope it also explains a little bit more about why I filter my water personally and the reasons why you should also. Ultimately, again, we just want to stay safe, but we can do that while giving back a little bit and taking care of the planet while we're at it, not creating those additional little pieces of plastic through our water consumption and our bottles. Not everywhere is it going to be possible for us to not have a plastic bottle. However, in places where we can, or places where we can fill up, we should be doing that and doing our part. Remember guys, we're not here for a long time, but we are here for a good time, and you guys can rest assured that those water test kits are available at Walmart if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about the water you're consuming near you. Till next time guys, bye!